It's amazing to think how long the Scream franchise has been around. I remember the first time I watched Scream and was impressed by Ghostface's costume, the smart Sidney Prescott, Neve Campbell, and the overall premise. Now, many after I first became interested in horror movies, I'm one of countless fans waiting for Scream 7. Although there might be over a year left until Scream 7 is released in February 2026, the movie is currently shooting. I'm as curious as other audience members about how Sidney will find out that there is a new Ghostface and how the other characters are going to fit into her life. Of course, the more things change, the more they remain the same, and I'm sure Scream 7 will offer plenty for fans to feel nostalgic about despite some new characters. However, while I love that Kevin Williamson is directing, there is one part of Scream 7 that makes me pause. The Scream franchise has defined itself through a meta-commentary, and every entry has commented on a different type of horror movie. For instance, Scream 2 talked about sequels, and Scream 2022 analyzed reboots and requels and the problems with them. However, what will Scream 7 be about? This is a question that I find myself asking as more news comes out about cast members being added and which familiar actors are reprising their popular roles. I think that Scream 6 had a tough time deciding on its horror commentary, and that doesn't bode well for Scream 7. Scream 6 talked about franchises, but I think this was too vague in general. Mindy Meeks Martin, Jasmine Savoy Brown says, "Fuck this franchise" in one scene, and Mindy and beloved legacy character Kirby Reed, Hayden Panettiere, bond when they talk about their favorite horror movies. But did the characters have anything thoughtful or interesting to say about franchises? What works so well about the Scream franchise is when characters comment on horror movie genre rules. Randy Meeks, Jamie Kennedy, infamously did this in Scream, and horror fans will never forget it. I loved watching him talk about how final girls should never go upstairs, drink, or say, "I'll be right back." This kind of scene was missing from Scream 6, and I'm not sure how Scream 7 can fix that issue. There isn't anything particularly thought-provoking or compelling about the 7th movie in a franchise. It's hard to think of any good or memorable 7th entries in a horror franchise. By that point, horror movies tend to get stale and repetitive. The most exciting horror sequels are rarely number 5, 6, or 7. Just look at Friday the 13th or the brutal and violent Saw franchise. Do fans really love any movies past number 2 or 3? Since people often say that the original is the best, I think Scream 7 has an uphill battle. When I think about what meta-horror commentary could exist in Scream 7, I think the new movie has to comment on legacy characters. There are several coming back, including Sidney Prescott, Gale Weathers, Mindy Meeks Martin, and Chad Meeks Martin, Mason Gooding. Fans have thought about Chad's arc, and while I'm also eager to see where he and the other characters are now, I think that Scream 7 needs to include plenty of jokes about seeing the same faces over and over again. When Gale and Sidney see each other for the first time in Scream 7, I'd love for them to joke about how they're final girls. Mindy and Chad could also comment on how they're legacy characters who are coming back for another sequel because fans wanted them to return. And if Kirby comes back to Scream 7, she could also joke about how she's returned yet again because audiences always want to see their favorite characters. I think this would be funny and smart and would help solve the problem of Scream 7 needing meta-commentary. When Gale and Sidney see each other for the first time in Scream 7, I'd love for them to joke about how they're final girls. Mindy and Chad could also comment on how they're legacy characters who are coming back for another sequel because fans wanted them to return. And if Kirby comes back to Scream 7, she could also joke about how she's returned yet again because audiences always want to see their favorite characters. I think this would be funny and smart and would help solve the problem of Scream 7 needing meta-commentary.